Yes, good afternoon to us all, seniors and colleagues on the platform. And let me first of all welcome all of us to this session of the June Wellness Month activities. Now, this is expected to help us at the end improve or minimize our stress levels, both at work and at home, wherever we may find ourselves. So before I start, or before I say something about the facilitator, let me humbly put across the platform that we all need to mute our gadgets that we are using for this webinar. And then if we have any form of concern, can raise the hand, either that you want to ask questions or whatever. But questions and answers time will come. So we have to wait for that. Just let us take note on whatever will be said, and then we can also contribute when we are done. So let me now introduce our facilitator for today's webinar. Our facilitator was a senior lecturer at the HYPA department. HYPA is Health, Physical Education and Recreation. He was a senior lecturer at the HYPA department, UCC. He was also, some time ago, the sports coach of the sports session. In UCC, when they say the sports coach, they are talking of the head of the sports unit at UCC. Currently, he is a lecturer at the Department of Sports Science, Neurocognition and Biomechanics at the Faculty of Psychology and Sports Science, BIELEFELD University. He holds about 157 publications to his name. He is going to speak on exercise and stress. Like I said earlier, at the end, we are expecting that we'll have a lot to take home, a lot that we can work with to minimize our stress level. It's in the person of Dr. John ELVIS Hagan, Jr. In fact, we are trying to, we are working behind the scenes to bring him to KNUST. And so he has consented, so he will come and join us at the Teacher Education Department. So Dr. ELVIS Hagan, your audience. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon to cherished listeners for this all-important webinar. Please let me ask whether my audio is audible enough for everyone.
Yes, I can hear you well.
Okay, all right. Yeah, so before I start, I just want to, first of all, commend the organizers of this all-important program, the Wellness Month. I mean, as it has been touted, I find it quite very, very useful, because if we look at current trends or statistics about all-cause mortality and morbidity, I mean, we are losing active workforce. I mean, people, human resource across the globe. And it's even more precarious when we visit low to middle income countries, for which Ghana is one. So if KNUST, through the Sports Directorate, has planned something like this as a form of health education and promotion, I think that the whole team needs commendation. I salute you all. I salute you all for this package, for you to even consider the month of June for this all-important exercise. Stress and exercise, or exercise and stress, whichever direction you want to look at it, It's something that we all know. The issues I'm coming to share, or the issues that probably we might be discussing later on, are issues we know. But for whatever reason, some of these issues we have taken for granted. So going forward, this will be the structure of my presentation. I'll be talking about the concept of stress and stressor. I'll also be talking about examples of work-related stresses, because like that's the focus. Then we want to talk about the reasons behind why we are even stressed. Then what are the stress signals? What are the work-related warning signals? Then we want to briefly look at the effects of work-related stress. Then the whole process, the stress cycle. Then we'll now use exercise as a coping mechanism. I mean, there are so many mechanisms or strategies to manage stress, but then the focus will be on exercise. Then we'll do at the end, I'm hoping time would allow, then we'll have one practical exercise, not particularly exercise as in physical activity or the exercise we know, but it's something that we'll do it virtual as we are on now. Now the question is that what is the concept of stress? Stress is any response or a response of the body to any demand perceived as threatening or challenging. And this response could be psychological, this response could be physiological, and this response could be behavioral. So as we go on, you'll get to understand why I'm saying this. So we can't talk about stress without trying to find whether stress is that bad. So why is it an issue? So we are trying to look at the dichotomy between eustress and distress. So eustress, I think that is conceptualized as good stress. So issues that arises from the demand of pleasant or fun-related engagements. So for example, if you are going on annual vacation, or you are going on an annual leave, or if you are receiving promotion, or you are engaging in fun activities, that demand seems to be positive because it brings about self-satisfaction, it brings about motivation going forward. Then the opposite of it is what we call the distress. So there are situations that arise from unpleasant experiences, or what I call negative demands, which we then have to adapt, as in to evoke some coping strategies because we perceive them as unpleasant. So if we have looked at stress, the dichotomy, or the differences between distress and eustress, then what is a stressor? Something should cause the stress. So we are saying that a stressor is any event or situation that results in a stress response, and that this differ from person to person. And once these stresses are evoked, what happens is that the individual would have to evoke certain coping strategies, or would have to adjust to these stresses or the stressor that the person might be experiencing. Now, what are some of the work-related stresses? So, for example, uncertainty about job security. If we are not too sure about the current status of where we have been employed, it could be a potential source of stress. Lack of, for example, human and material resource would also be a cause of stress. Because assuming that you have to do a magnitude of work and that you don't have the materials to accomplish those goals, or you don't have the resources or the human resource to do that, then the very few would have to deal with that volume of work and perhaps the intensity of work. And that could also be a potential source of stress. Then the other issue is like inadequate training. So sometimes our competencies do not match the demands of our job. So you are assigned a job, yet you don't have the competency to overcome that task that is before you. And it also becomes a bit of a stressor to that individual or the person. So issues about poor time management and organizational skills. You can also talk about difficult relationships with co-workers. I mean, we are working in a public space, so you could have an issue, a banter with somebody, some misunderstanding with somebody could also be a potential source of stress. And sometimes even those who supervises the subordinates at different parts or different units or different departments could also, sometimes you can't be working with somebody who is extremely difficult if your head or like whoever is supposed to supervise you is that difficult person. That person could also be a stressor. Then we can also talk about an unsafe working environment. When you are working in an environment that seems a bit toxic, seems a bit hostile, then that environment could be a stressor to whoever is working under that environment. Then we also have unclear expectations about job performance. So if you are being employed and for whatever reasons, you had so much expectations about the things that you do vis-a-vis or even the tasks that you are supposed to, or your roles and responsibilities as assigned by the job, and they don't match or they don't mirror what you had expected or what you had anticipated before, that could also be a potential source of. Then the issue of role ambiguity or role conflict. So sometimes we have structural issues, we have roles, different roles that overlap, then they become an issue with the individual or we as workers of the institution. And sometimes some roles too are very unclear. So if you are working with a supervisor who assigns a role that seems so much ambiguous, you don't know whether to go towards this direction, move towards right, or move to, then it becomes a source of a stressor, because what happens is that there are repetitiveness, or like there are repetitions of the things that you do. You go and it's like, no, this is not what I want. I had anticipated or expected, all things being equal, you to do this, and it didn't happen. And that could be also a potential source. We cannot talk about work-related stress, work-related stress without trying to mirror that with what happens in the home, because the two, they tie in together. So let's quickly look at what are some of the issues, like difficult relationships with significant others. So for example, if you are married or whoever is, like wherever you are staying, whoever you are living with, relationship issues could be a source of stress, and then become like as in a stressor. Then the other issue is about bills. We all know, I mean, we are in a system where the socioeconomic standing is not that high. So bills, saving for your own future, probably life after retirement, could also be a source of like as in a stressor. Then spending habits. I mean, regardless of how much you are earning, sometimes your own habits just to meet certain standards of your own living also then becomes like a stressor. Look, the issue about child delinquency, if you're in a house where like issues about truancy among some family members or your own, either if they are your children, your brothers or your siblings, that could also be a source. Then poor time management. I mean, able to meet deadlines or timelines, even both at home and at work, could also be another source. Then home career management, trying to tie in between issues that happen at home, then the issues that may happen at your work site or your workplace could also be a source of stress. Then
hello, Doc.
So let me go to the last point. So sometimes At home, unmet expectations between couples and partners also become like a source of stress. So, for example, before we go into these relationships or as partners, I mean, we have our own expectations about what we do expect from each other. If those expectations are not met, then like that relationship or that partnership then becomes a source or a stressor to the individuals or those involved. Now, so why do we stress out? Now, that's the question. Why do we stress out? There are two major reasons. The first reason is that you perceive the situation as threatening or difficult and sometimes quite painful. And once this appraisal is done, then it could be the beginning of that stress experience. Then the next reason is whether we do have enough resources to manage or to cope. You have enough coping resources to deal with the stressor that may eventually turn into stress. So what I normally say is that our perceptions equate how stressed we feel or experience as individuals. One other thing that I have always mentioned to friends or colleagues around me is change as a stressor. When there is change, that change becomes a source of stress or becomes a stressor. Why? Because we fear the unknown. We fear of the unknown. We are not too sure what may happen in the future. And once that happens, then it becomes a potential source. Two, perceived risks. Because we don't know what the future might bring as a result of the change, your risk perception is like tilted towards, hey, what are the happenings? And you always want to be thinking, what next? What next? As a result of perceived lack of control, because there is a change in leadership, there is a change in headships. Sometimes you have been transferred from one department to the other. You have new colleagues that are joining the unit. Then you don't know. That change alone is becoming a problem. That you are perceiving it as a problem because there is that loss of control. Probably once upon a time, you were the registration officer or you were the research assistant. Now, probably you have been transferred to a unit where that role might not be there again. It has been given to somebody else. Your new schedules, you have new schedules, your routines have changed. In terms of your job descriptions, they all become stresses to the individual. Because why? We are assuming that, or we are perceiving that there are some losses assigned to this change. And what are some of what are these losses? Like comfort. So if you're once the director of sports or once maybe the director of maybe the research unit, and there is a change, probably with all the benefits that normally go with some of these positions, now you are losing comfort. So you think that you keep on thinking, wow. So who drives my kids to school? Who picks my wives from this? What happens? So you are losing that comfort. You are losing relationship because we build acquaintances from our previous probably establishment or units. And once we are losing these acquaintances, if you are not careful with the appraisal, it becomes a source or a stressor to the individual. Then there is also loss of trust, especially when that change is not mutual. It's not something that we had all planned, we had all agreed. So there is a loss of trust between people who are directly involved with this change. Then the other issue, which I mean, sometimes we find it very difficult to talk about this, is about sense of competence. And I've always been saying this, that it is very difficult for people to recognize the limitations within their own competencies. And I want to repeat this again. Sometimes we are afraid to even recognize even the limitations within our own competencies. So you give me a task and a task, like I don't match up, or my competencies do not mirror the task that it's sometimes very, very key that people will be very open and seek help, but we don't. Then it becomes that particular task that has been assigned to you then becomes a stressor. Then there's that sense of insecurity because whatever you are doing, I mean, you are not doing it well. You don't need a soothsayer to tell you. So when actions are taken, then becomes a source for which we become so stressed. Now, let's move on. So what are the signals? What are the stress warning signals? And this is like what I call the red flags. So what are the red flags, or what are the warning signs that stress is creeping into our own life? So we'll pick them from different perspectives. So emotional. Sometimes we get easily frustrated. We get easily agitated. We become very moody. We sometimes feel overwhelmed by events around us. We feel very sad. We feel dejected. Sometimes we are so irritable, like the least provocation, the least situations around us, we get so flared up. You are so short-tempered, and that you easily get angry. And the next thing that happens is that we try to avoid people, go into momentary isolations. So sometimes somebody gets to the office, he wants to stay, somebody will say, like, let me stay in one corner, just to avoid the emotions that are running behind. And sometimes what I call is like, these are blind emotions. Then the next is like, we feel a bit anxious, we get so worried about events that are happening around us. So that is the emotional perspective. Now, what about the physical? Physical, because we lose energy, you could just sense from your body that, no, something is not right. I mean, you easily fatigue on the few things that you do around yourself. Then you also get like migraine or frequent headaches. Even sometimes you feel dizzy or dizziness. These are some of the signs. Some experience stomach upsets and nausea. You feel like throwing out. Sometimes it comes with chest pain and rapid heartbeat or irregular heartbeat. So your heart keeps pounding because of what you are perceiving. And some of us also would show these signs of insomnia or insomnia, like sleeping disturbances, or like you are having distorted sleeping patterns. And for some of these symptoms might also come with excessive perspiration, that we sweat a lot. I mean, you're under air condition. I mean, your whole room is really freezing, yet you are sitting and you are really sweating excessive. It's also a sign that, no, something is not right. Now, cognitively, what happens? So there is this constant worry. You keep worrying about events around you or the happenings around you. And the next thing is that your thoughts are racing from one end. You are switching between thoughts. You don't know what's happening next. Then you also sometimes have memory problems. Cognitively, you easily forget about things that might have been said probably 10, 15 minutes ago. Okay, John, maybe Jacob, maybe Alice, Irene. I remember I told you to do this, or I asked that these things are to be done. For whatever reasons, that short spate of time, you've lost that track of probably that instruction that has been given. So inability to focus and inability to concentrate. Then we also manifest this poor sense of judgment. So issues about decision making. You're unable to take, like, say, logical reasoning. If there are choices between options, most at times we tilt towards the negative and of that continuum. Now, behaviorally, most of the things that we do when we are in this situation is to procrastinate. We keep postponing things around us. Okay, no, I'll do this tomorrow, maybe next week during the weekend. And that thing gets not get done. We also manifest some of these things by either eating too little or too much. So either you are overeating, or you are eating less. And then for some people, they would also they will show by increased use of alcohol. and other substances. And some of the nervous behaviors that we normally elicit are, for example, people biting their fingers, they fidget. I mean, you see the restlessness. Sometimes if you're on like a corridor, even in the office, you see people pacing around without any defined tasks before them, or they are pacing for nothing. They are doing nothing. They are just pacing. It's also a sign that something is not right. So what are the long-term effects? The long-term effects, I've just, for the purposes of time, I've tried to make it a bit simple. So burnout, like extreme physical and emotional exhaustion, and also insomnia, I've mentioned before, so sleeping disturbances. Then we also go into like that depressive situation. So like you have this mood disorder, mood swings. Like in one moment you are smiling, you are laughing. In another moment, within a short space of time, you are so dejected, you are so down, and like people around you are struggling to lift your spirit up. Then for physical, I mean, we develop like cases like high blood pressure, which if not controlled, then may lead to hypertension. Then we also have chronic pain as a result of muscle tension. We also have this suppressed immunity, or immune system is compromised. And because of that, we have these colds and flu, and the general sense of fatigue with individuals affected with such situations. Now, let's look at the process. So what I would say is that, so look at the stressor. We've mentioned so many stressors. So this stressor is coming from the environment. So you have the stressor, which is coming from the environment, and this could be visual, the things we see around us. It could be acoustic, like the things we hear. It could be like the feelings, how we feel about situations. It could even be smell. So all these perceptual capacities then becomes the driver of the stressor. So then when that happens, there is cognitive appraisal of that stressor as either a threat or as either a challenge. And most often, all things being equal, for those who appraise the situation as threat, normally manifests high stress, or what I call distress. So the negative form of like the negative stress. And those who appraise the situation or interpret the situation as a challenge manifest that with what I call the positive stress, or low stress. And for such people, they normally evoke active coping strategies. So strategies just to overcome the task or challenge that they are perceiving. For those on the other side of the continuum, what happens is that the moment they start appraising the situation as threatening, they then evoke dysfunctional coping strategies. So what are some of these dysfunctional strategies? Like avoidance, or they go into isolation. Some of them may start using like substance or alcohol, then the behavioral tendencies will now follow as an outcome. Now the question is, how can we manage stress? We have different strategies or mechanisms for managing stress. But for the purposes of this presentation and the goal for that wellness month, we'll be focusing more on exercise. So I'm just showing this screen. So these are dysfunctional coping strategies. So the use of alcohol, either overeating or eating little, or any other substance. Always let's remember that all these substances so are either stimulants, they are sedatives, they are hallucinogens, they are depressants, and all these substances have their functional effects on the body. So if you start using these as your coping, then the purpose for you taking these substances might not meet your expectations or your goals of managing the situation for you. So this is what we try to do. This is what we encourage. So for like exercise, eat well, take some relaxation, play music if you are a lover of music, do exercises, do some walk your dog or any pets that you have, and play sports. So if you're a lover of tennis, go and play tennis. Some even go to the extent of evoking religious coping. So might visit the mosques or might visit the church. Now, exercise. So I put exercise under the broader umbrella of physical activity. So what is physical activity? Physical activity is any form of movement that causes your body to use energy. And that exercise, which is a sub of physical activity, is a purposeful physical activity that is planned, that is structured, that is repetitive, and generally improves our fitness and wellness. So in general, what I would say is that all kinds of physical activity, and not just exercise, has the power to improve your overall health. What are some of, so what can exercise do for us? We have been hearing this, we know. So running, doing step-ups, skipping, doing push-ups or press-ups, bicycling, or going to swim will make like you fitter. I mean, it's a common knowledge. It's not something that is rocket science. We know this. We also know that exercise or all these physically related activities will improve our health. How? So mentally and emotionally, studies have proven that their stress and depression, they relieve us from these conditions. It's also mood enhancement. I mean, the feel-good factor. Once you go play, you do all these exercises, you meet friends, you come back, you feel so good about yourself, and also improve your self-esteem. Now, let's look at the physical aspect, and that statistics are showing that exercises or physical activity has reduce the risk of the 3 leading causes of mortality or death. So like heart disease, stroke, cancer. I mean, these are records from WHO, and that's quite frightening. And we also know that exercise physically would help you maintain healthy weight, so controls your weight, improve your self-image and your appearance. We also know that the more you exercise, the more your energy levels go up. We also know that when you exercise, you improve your posture. It also strengthens your bones, like all those connective tissues, like your ligaments, bones, and muscles. We also know that once you exercise, I mean, I'm sure some may share their own experiences. If you go to any bout of exercises, you end up sleeping very well. So it reduces this sleep-related disturbances. And that it's also like exercises reduce your risk of what I call opportunistic infections. So these normal infections like flu, cold, because your immunity is well improved. What about social? Social because we spend time with friends, we spend time with family, we make new friends, we develop life-related skills. And I always say that sometimes people don't think it's necessary, but developing or building human relation is very key. And one platform that can easily do that for you is when you go out exercising with people around you. Then it also gives you self-confidence, like we have fun, and at the end of the day, it gives us that satisfaction and enjoyment. So now the question is opportunities for physical activity or exercises. So We have opportunities at work. We have activities through transport. We have activities through our domestic duties. We also have opportunities, we have opportunities during leisure time when we have our leisure. Now, the sad thing is that, unfortunately, many people do little or no physical activity in any of these domains at all. And that is if you look at the statistics about sedentary behavior as recorded and recent by WHO, I mean, it's quite serious. Even in developed countries, let alone from where we come from, where access to, I mean, fitness-related centers or the environment, friendliness to issues about exercise or physical activity, I mean, quite restricted. So now this is the part that I find it quite interesting. So, like, let's get moving. Let's get started. So what are the things that we can do? What are the components of physical activities that we can initiate? So we can initiate aerobic exercises. What are aerobic exercises? These are exercises that you are done that works on the heart or the cardiorespiratory over a prolonged period of time. So you do this, and this improves these systems of your body. So what are resistance exercises? These are exercises like using weights or using resistant activity to develop your muscle, to build up your muscle. Because, I mean, we have different types of muscles in the body. So skeletal muscles will be built, then smooth and visceral organs are also strengthened because of your engagement in physical activity or a planned or structured exercise. Then we can also look at flexibility exercises that normally enhances our range of movement through stretching, either dynamic stretching, static stretching, or ballistic stretching. What are the types of aerobic exercises that, I mean, these are things that I know some of you are already doing. For outdoor, we can always be thinking about walking. We can always be thinking about jogging, running. We can always be thinking about bicycling. We can always be thinking about swimming, basketball, soccer, skipping ropes. I remember when we were growing up, those are the things that we were easily doing. For indoor, like those fitness facilities would always offer you the use of treadmills. I mean, if you don't have access, you can use the staircase for climbing. Within those fitness centers or like these exercise centers, you have stationary bikes or what we call the ergometers. We have these cross trainers. And that even outside these like equipments, we can do aerobics with music or without music. Now, what are some of the resistance exercises that we know? So the use of free weights. So some of the things that we can use is the use of these barbells, the use of dumbbells with weights at the ends. So you use them depending on your own planned program. Then you can also use your body or your weight as a form of a resistant exercise. So you can do push-ups, you can do pull-ups, you can do lunges, you can do squats, you can do like squat jumps. These are all resistance related exercises. Now the question is how much and how hard? So first of all, the frequency is also very important for for you to enjoy the benefits of exercise or physical activity. Then how frequent you do these exercises are quite paramount. So for example, for aerobics exercises, a minimum of 3 days per week are necessary to elicit the changes that we want. For resistance related exercises, you can think of 2 days within the week. For flexibility exercises, you can be thinking about 3 to 5 days per week. So for how long? For aerobic exercises, you can be targeting between a minimum of 20 to 60 minutes, depending on your level of physical activity engagement. So for people who are sedentary, you want to start them slowly, then migrate into like higher numbers in terms of the duration. Then for resistance, you can be thinking about 1 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 repetitions. And this can be also be minimized by virtue of like the group, the cohort, or the individual that is engaging in this group. Then for the for stretching or flexibility exercises, you stretch the muscle groups like from upper body to lower body, hold it between 10 to 30 seconds at each section. Now, timing questions. So the question is that what time of the day is best? So my answer is choose the most convenient time for your own schedule, because our schedules differ. If your schedule is like that, the mornings might not work for you, perhaps the like late afternoon or perhaps in the evening might work for you. For others, the evenings might not work, but the mornings might be suitable. So if that's the case, then we go for this slot. Now choose a regular time and the same time every day. It's more helpful and advisable so that you are consistent with your own program. The timing may also depend on the type of activity you choose. So the type of activity, so for example, I mean, if you decide to do aerobic exercise like running, and you want to run at dawn, from the environment that we find ourselves, sometimes there are no street lights, so it becomes a bit difficult. So that type of exercise might not be convenient. So you might want to do something different. So you want to, for example, play music in your room and shake yourself or do some aerobics with music. Can I eat before exercise? Now the answer is it is best to eat a meal 2 hours before your workout. And that at any point in time, make sure you drink enough water before and during exercise. Should I exercise when I'm sick? And the answer is no, especially when you have fever, because the risk then becomes a bit higher for you. Now I'm coming to the very tail end of the presentation. So another group of people that we don't want to leave, wouldn't want to leave behind, is brothers who have special needs. So people with disabilities, because exercise is for all. So exercise is not meant for any group of persons. So regardless of the person's social status, gender, age, exercise is meant for everybody. So if we have a group that have physical conditions, then what we can do is to plan modified activities to suit their needs. I cannot talk about exercise and not talk about the risk associated with exercise. So issues about personal safety is also very, very key. So for example, you use the right equipment or you use the correct equipment like shoes. So for example, if you wear shoes that are not appropriate and you are running, you could slip, and that could be a potential source of injury. Maybe the type of clothes you are wearing might even not be comfortable for you, the exerciser. So it's always important that these equipments or the things that we use for exercises are very appropriate to meet our needs. Now, nighttime is key because of the environment we find ourselves. So stay to well-lighted or well-lit areas. And I'm sure we know the reasons. So for the fear of somebody harming you, attacking you, you would want to make sure that that part of your safety precaution is observed. Then also pay attention to the weather and objects that you are using. For example, on a sunny day, it will be very difficult because of extreme temperatures to say that I'm going to work out under the sun. In the same way, if it's a rainy day, heavy rains, I'm wondering how you go out, for example, playing basketball, or go out playing, let's say, volleyball, or go out running. So the weather and the type of objects that we use are quite important, so that it reduces they reduce the risk of potential injuries. Then run, walk, and play with friends. It's always important that when you are going for these routines, I mean, you go with significant others, people around you. So your acquaintances will be very helpful, so that you do that together, you have fun, you have that satisfaction, you share ideas about what are the things that, and they could be even source of motivation for the things that you'll be doing. Having said this, I can also think about, warm up. It's always important that for your body to be prepared for the exercise, it's important that we warm up at least 10, 15, 20 minutes before we start these formal activities, as a precaution for the risk of injury. Then we can also talk about, for sedentary people, it's always important that for those of us who help or we work out with them, let them understand this onset of soreness, muscle soreness. But for some people, once they start the exercise and they start feeling all these body pains, then it's like, wow. So if that is what it is, then they may either quit or even reduce the frequency of what they are doing. But once they get this awareness that the exercise process starts with that onset of pain, then after a period of time, this pain would either vanish or would be a source of probably a motivation for them. I'm ending by just saying this, that little decisions, big impact. Now we pay for exercise, but so most of these physical related activities like running around, doing aerobics in your room, we don't pay. However, I would want to suggest this to the director of sports and your team, that is it possible for us to create, because we are trying to create awareness, like digital screens are the most entrance and exits of the university. Like you have posters or digital screens that are showing posters about healthy lifestyles, including eating, dietary related behaviors, or sleep, issues about sleep, and also physical related activity. So for example, if I know my Kia University very well, if you are coming towards the Pajo area, towards, you are going towards I don't know the name, but you see that every morning you see heavy traffic coming within and out. If you come towards the Bomsu gate, just after the commercial bank, I know you also have a gate there. Is it possible that we can create digital screens? If we cannot, we can just mount posters, giant posters, with all these decisions about our dietary practices, issues about our sleeping habits, issues about physical activity behavior, may potentially go a long way in helping us make healthier decisions about our own life. And lastly, this is the practical section that I was mentioning at the very beginning. We are going to do, this is not a physical activity, this is more relaxation related, but it's also one of the coping strategies to help us manage some of these measures. And I call this box breathing. So this is what we are going to do. I'll play a video. So you hold, or you breathe in according to the direction of movement of the arrow. You see a red arrow on the screen. Then once it moves towards the top end of the square, you hold your breath. Then once it descends, it's coming down, you breathe out. You breathe out to the end of this side of the box. As it moves towards the lower part of the box, you hold your breath. So we'll do that for just about 1 minute. Then we'll end the section so that now we'll go into the next phase if there are questions and answers. So please, wherever you are, just take your optimum position. If you are sitting in a chair, just stay relaxed. If you are lying down, you can also take that optimal relaxed position. So this is are we ready? Are we
Yes,
ready,
please?
please?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. So, thank you so much for your attention. And this is the end of my presentation. So probably I'll hand it over to the moderator.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. ELVIS Hagan, for a good job. Well done. You are wonderful. We are also supposed to add something small,
Okay.
but I think that we will have to give time to members to ask questions if there are one,
Okay.
or if there's one, so that we can continue from there. We just have a small presentation on the sporting facilities we have that can help people to achieve this exercise aim to minimize stress. So members, participants, humbly, if you have any questions, you can put across to Dr. ELVIS Hagan for answers. Okay, so let me ask one question. I can see that questions are not coming here. Let me ask one question. Dr. ELVIS Hagan, what about workload? I see that workload is a very big stressor of most of our people, and even problems from home. People carry problems from home to the workplace, and it affects everything they do. So can you speak to that for us?
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Mensah. The nature of our job is such that we cannot run away from the load demands from what we are doing now. Now, for me, what I would suggest is the use of an integrated planner. An integrated planner that you have really outlined what you do at any point in time, including options that needs, like options that would require alternatives. So for example, if you have a planner, if I'm to do this work and this work cannot be done this time, what happens to that work? Is it possible for somebody to step in? Is it possible for that role to be assigned? Is it possible for that task to be assigned? That's one option. Or you stagger, by virtue of the load, you stagger the loads into manageable units. such that like you are not overwhelmed by events. For example, let me share my experiences. I review for some journals. I review for some journals, including my own teaching. And sometimes you are reviewing for grant calls, you are reviewing for journals. So all that I do is to put it within my planner and just inform the journal that these are my timelines, these are my schedules. So I'll be able to meet these demands or these assigned tasks at this time. If it works out with them, fine. If it doesn't work out with what they want, then I would ask that, is it possible for the role to be reassigned? But from where we come from, it's sometimes difficult to say no. Yeah, because I mean, you are working with the boss who has given you, okay, all your reports should be ready. All your reports should be ready probably in the next fortnight. Or you are attending maybe, I don't know, in UCC we used to call it Sports and Recreation Committee meeting. But I know KNUST you have amalgamated sports. Is that correct?
Sports management.
So if
sports
you have,
management board.
okay, so the sports management board, and you have to produce like a huge document, including some other organizational related issues related to your work. The only thing is assigned roles. If you don't do that, what will happen is that these work demands will consume you. That's what I would say. So use of integrated planner, where you stagger some of your engagement into manageable units. And when it's possible for you to say no, if it is possible, say no to some of these things. For example, I have colleagues who they will go on, we call from our term, we call it galamsey. Today he's at code. The next day he's at this, he's supervising here, he's going here. I mean, no, the body is not a machine. Even machines, sometimes they wear out for use. So if you are unable to manage some of these demands, then what may happen is that we will suffer for these loads. And like I said before, if you look at the statistics, even in the country, if you look at people in active service that we are losing through morbidity and mortality, I mean, it's quite frightening. And that we will all have to take that necessary steps to make sure that we don't lose our human resource.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I see Professor Moses' hand is up. Prof.
Thank you, Doc, for a nice presentation. I really quite very enlightening. But I have a questions. I don't know how you look at it.
Okay.
What's your view in terms of work schedules and impromptu assignments given? How do you work schedule and impromptu assignments given? How do you look? What will you say about that?
Okay, I mean, for work schedules, like I said before, from where we come from, it's sometimes very difficult to say this, but in some jurisdictions, we know when school will be vacating even in 2027 and when school will begin. We know when students will arrive. It's well planned. So what you know all your schedule way in advance. So what happens is that you plan as and when they come. For example, I'll be attending a conference. I knew this conference way back last year. I knew this long time ago last year. And I've already prepared and it's gone. So all I will say is that it's always important that some of all these are work schedules from management perspective are planned way in advance so that at whatever level, different units, departments, faculties have this plan that, okay, we have these activities lined up. Then once we have these activities, what are the things that we need to do to overcome these schedules? The other part is the emergency aspect.
Okay.
Emergency is emergency. So what happens is that immediately you have to think out of the box to see what are the things that can be done in order to create a problem. So for me, sometimes it's about our creativity, our ability to plan, delegate, coordinate some of these activities. Because, for example, you are a lecturer, you have been called to...
Doc, sorry for coming in. What I mean to say is the fact that you have a schedule.
Okay.
And you've just reiterated the fact of the environment where you have to be given responsibility to do.
That's right.
In spite of your work schedule, you have impromptu activities that will still be given to you, and the expected deadline is also given to you impromptu, and you are expected to meet those things. How do we try to harmonize things like this? This are some of the things I'm looking at.
Okay. First of all, the first thing that I would appeal, I mean, I know there are big men around, some are listening, there are big women around who are all listening. I'll just appeal that some of these emergencies, which sometimes are unplanned, most emergencies are unplanned, they are spontaneous. If they are spontaneous, then there should be flexibility in the feedback or the returns with these emergencies. Because if you don't do that, then you put people, I mean, they become too extreme, and then people might break down. For example, if you are there and you have been called that, okay, Mr. Timothy or Professor Moses, you are to attend a workshop. You don't know, as we speak now, you don't know you are to attend a workshop. You are to attend a workshop tomorrow in, let's say, maybe Ibadan. Look at the distance from here to Ibadan. Or from here to maybe Ilorin. Look at that distance. So is there flexibility to this? So if there is a flexibility, okay, what are you doing towards that? Are you going to go by car? Are you going to go by flight? So what are the mechanisms that have been put in place to make sure that it doesn't become, that emergency doesn't become too much of a demand or excessive demand on you? So in as much as some of these emergencies are not planned for, let's try and make alternative or make arrangements to handle these emergencies in order not to burden our brothers or our colleagues. That's my take on that.
All right. Thank you very much. Prof, I hope you are answered. Right. Thank you very much, Dr. ELVIS Hagan. I think that it is time to look at what we also have at the Sports Directorate, the facilities we have. Yes. So the facilities we have at KNUST that can help you to do your exercise or to exercise. Dr. ELVIS Hagan has said a lot, but where can we undertake such exercises to reduce the stress levels that we have? The first one that comes to mind certainly is Pajo, and that is a name that is known everywhere. So at Pajo, we have the athletics over. On the athletics over, you can walk, you can jog, you can run, whatever you want to do there, it is allowed. Right. Some people prefer walking on the road or the street because they want to always see something new that will refresh them. A car will pass by, it will refresh them. Because when you are walking at one place, it is quite something else. You keep on seeing the same thing around. However, people like walking on the over, it is allowed. You can come and do that. So if you want to do that, you can call our chief sports coach is Mr. Emmanuel Aban. I've put his line there. You call him, he can help you to undertake any activity on our track. Then we also have the basketball court. We have 2 of them. You can go there. You can even decide to just shoot the ball. They'll give you a ball to shoot. It is very interesting when you are doing that or you are competing with somebody. It can help you to distress. So we have Coach Reagan. Senior Coach Regan to do that. His number is there. You can call him. He will help you to do that. We also have volleyball courts, 2 of them. And Chief Sports Coach Richard Yao-Ose can also help you to exercise there. Then we have the AstroTurf hockey pitch. The only one in all universities in Ghana, in KNUST here. You can see it when you pass by. It's a blue-colored pitch. And once again, the chief coach, Emmanuel Aban, can help you to do that. Then we also have 2 football pitches at Pajo again. And Richard Oseyal can help you. You can go dribbling, can go shooting balls, etc. There are small goal posts that you can use as your target kick or target kicking equipment for that. All those things are very interesting. That can help you to distress. Then we also have 2 tennis courts close to the senior clubhouse. You can call Sadiq. He will help you to learn how to play. When you are learning how to play, you will be exercising. As you exercise, it will help you to distress or forget about a lot of things. At a point in time, you'll be happy at a point in time to forget about a whole lot of things. That will help you a lot. Then we also have the Hale and Hattie, where we have the gym equipment, 2 squash courts, pickleball game. The wellness center is also there. You can contact Dominic Intraka. He's called Dominic Intraka. His number is also there. Then very soon we have the pool ready, the KNUST swimming pool. It will be ready. And once again, you can call Coach Regan to help you to work on yourself on that. So these are the major, what do you call it? The major facilities we have around that can help you to exercise when you want to distress. So I think that we have come to the end of our webinar. And first of all, we want to thank Dr. John Elvis Hagan Jr. for this.
Sorry, there's a question.
There's a question. Then let's attend to it. Whoever it is, please come out.
Yes, let me quickly read. He says, please, I would like to ask if exercise affects sleep quality, and as to what impact does this have on stress levels?
Okay.
Does exercise have effect on sleep quality?
Okay. Yeah. I remember one of the issues that I mentioned was stress affects our sleeping patterns. If you remember, I had already mentioned like issues about insomnia, and one of the things that happens after exercise is that all your neuromuscular control mechanisms they go into what I call resting metabolism. So naturally, what happens is that any bout of exercise, I don't know, for example, the numbers as in the duration of head, but what happens is that if you go exercising for 20, 30, 40 minutes or an hour, 60 minutes of that threshold, your neuromuscular control mechanisms gets a bit relaxed when you are under sleep. So it's automatically improves your sleeping quality, and you sleep more. That is longer duration than the intermittent breaks we normally have when you are having these sleep disturbances. That is what I would say. So I can research has proven that exercise improves sleep quality because your neuromuscular control mechanisms and the resting metabolism. So it calms the whole body down as you go to sleep. That's what I would say to the sister who asked that question.
Yes, I hope, Madam, I hope you are answered or you've been answered well. I hope you are satisfied with the answer. Right, so I'm sure we've done about 1 hour already. So we want to thank Dr. John Elvis Hagan, Jr., lecturer at BIELEFELD University. Doc, I hope you are getting ready to come.
It is well, small.
Yes, sure.
It is well.
Yes. So we want to applaud you for this wonderful job. I've learned a lot. I'm a sportsman, but I've learned a lot. You know, the psychology is also another thing. And I've learned a lot from you. I know colleagues have also learned quite a number of things from you. And we are very, very grateful. And to participants, wonderful. Wonderful. This has been successful. You've come out in your numbers to listen to this wonderful presentation, this webinar. It is wonderful. We appreciate you so much. We hope that participants are going to, or staff are going to use what has been said here today so that it will improve our lives as we work in KNUST, so that we'll be productive, so that we know that stress are not taking us down. Stress is not having a toll on our work output, but rather we are using exercise to overcome that stress so that we can be productive. We thank you very much for your participation. Thank you once again. Goodbye.